Hello everyone, welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. Now I'm sorry I haven't made a video for a little while. It's probably been about a week since I made my last video put on YouTube. So this video is just going to be about a hobby and talking about what I've been up to and why I haven't been around to make any videos. It starts off by me having to do a lot of hobby of my own. I had to do a lot of painting, a lot of building just to finish off my Death Army to take to Warhammer World last weekend for a big game. And I had to do quite a lot of finishing off separate models and stuff, and then also had to get all the mortar arches built and painted ready for the game, and get Nagash himself built and painted ready, and then his Morghast archive. So there's quite a lot to do within, a week or so. With the excuses out of the way, here is my finished Death Army. Quite happy with this. This is what I started about 2 years and 4 months ago roughly, and this is the finished result of it. So it's got around 230 models in it that are painted. There are more models than what's on display here in the photo. However, I didn't have enough space to put them on my 4 feet by 2 feet board. And also these are the ones that are painted, the other ones aren't. So I wanted to show off these ones. And these were the ones I was going to take to the game. So I fielded all of this in my battle on Saturday, and there's some pictures of that I'll show you guys in a bit. And let's talk about the army. And I'm not going to talk about the individual artifacts and all that sort of thing, because that would just take far too long, and I don't think anyone has that sort of time. So it's important to know that this game we had on Saturday was it's just a fun game. It was just two huge armies fighting against themselves. I mean, this army here comes in at 10,230 points. So it was more of a open play game, shall we say? More of a narrative one, to be honest. So it consists of 21 leaders, 12 battle line, 9 behemoths, and no artillery, as it is death and I don't have a Screaming Skull catapult. So like I said, because this is more of a sort of narrative game, I do have a lot of flesh eaters in this army, and I did take the legions off Nagash, and I had a couple of like Tomb King units and a Mongol in there, which is not legal in match play. However, I just treated them as allies, as like I said, I just wanted to field my whole army, and I wanted to have Nagash leading it, as it feels the most narratively driven. So, to start with, we've got our general, like I just said, Nagash, Supreme Lord of the Undead, coming in at 80 points. So, him as the general, his command trait just works beautifully in the army, because the scale of the battle, being able not to say battle shock and just re-rolling hit rolls of 1 and save rolls of 1, just was a huge passive ability. Okay, so that is Nagash. The next one is Arcan the Black, Mortarch of Sacrament. Then we have Neferata, Mortarch of Blood. Then we have Manfred, Mortarch of Night. Then we have Prince Vahordre himself. First time using him, he turned out to be really awesome. Then we have a Vampire Lord, then another Vampire Lord, then a White King with Baleful Tombblade, then a Necromancer, then 2 Tomb Banshees, a Calm Wraith, and then we move on to the Flesh Eater Court Heroes. So to start, it's an Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, then an Abhorrent Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon, then a Varghulf Courtier, then a Crypt Haunted Courtier, then a Crypt Infernal Courtier, then a Crypt Ghasting Courtier, then an Abhorrent Ghoul King, another Abhorrent Ghoul King, and a Tomb King. So I'm just going to catch my breath for a moment, because that was quite a lot of heroes to read through, even if you're not going through what artifacts and what weapons they've got. So yeah, that was my 21 leaders. So not too bad there. And then moving on to my units. So to start with, we've got Nagash's own personal bodyguard, being a unit of 4 Morghast Archive. Then we have a unit of 40 Skeleton Warriors. Then we have a unit of 30 Skeleton Warriors, and then we have a unit of 10 Skeleton Warriors. We then have a unit of 10 Black Knights, a unit of 20 Graveguard, a unit of 4 Bat Swarms, a Black Coach. We then have 5 Direwolves, 3 Serpical Stalkers, which are the Tomb King unit, which is basically big snakes with arms holding huge glaives. So pretty nice there. They didn't actually get to fight in the battle because I put them on the ground, and just because of how big the battle was, I actually forgot to bring them up. But they went all the way to Warhammer World, so that was the main thing. Okay, then we move on to the Flesh-Eater Court part, which is a unit of 20 Crypt Ghouls, a unit of 30 Crypt Ghouls, a unit of 9 Crypt Flares, another unit of 9 Crypt Flares, a unit of 3 Crypt Flares, and a unit of 9 Crypt Horrors. Okay, so they are the units. So again, I'm going to move on to the Behemoths. So we have a Terrorgeist and a Mongol. So that is all the units in the army. And then with the battalions, we have the first cohort, which is Nagash's battalion. And in that I had Nagash, the unit of 4 Morgos Archai, the unit of 40, 30, and 10 Skeleton Warriors, a unit of 10 Black Knights, and a unit of 20 Graveguard. So it was a pretty big battalion. And then we have the King's Ghouls after that, which I had in that was the 2 units of Crypt Ghouls and the unit of Crypt Horrors. And then we had the Dead Watch, which consisted of all the Crypt Flare units and the Crypt Infernal Courtier. And then we have the Royal Family, which were essentially my Abhorrent Ghoul Kings in the army. So that's the army list. Of course, I did have things like spells and artifacts, but I'm not going to list them as, to be honest, I can't really remember what they were, as there was that many. I hope when you see the pictures of the army, you can appreciate that why I can't give every little bit of detail, just because I don't think, like I say, anyone has that sort of time. But the main thing was just, it was awesome just to bring my whole Warhammer Death Army all the way up to Warhammer World, to actually have it all on one battlefield at the same time. And I can tell you just little things like the logistics of this was quite a lot. I had to buy another Crusader case, so I now have 2 Crusader cases, a Skirmish case, the old big Games Workshop case, the smaller old Games Workshop case, and then a load of boxes and stuff for the monsters. As I also had to bring up a Archaon for my opponent to fight with. So yeah, I mean, there's absolutely loads of stuff. The car was full. Obviously, I never want to be in a car crash, but I mean, if I got hit by a vehicle on the motorway up to Warhammer World when I had all that stuff in the car, I think I'd cry more about all my precious models that have been destroyed rather than my own personal safety. So luckily that didn't happen though, but it was just a constant worry driving up there. I was driving about 60 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour the whole way just to make sure no crash would happen. Right, okay, so now we're going to move into some of the photos of the actual battlefield. So this is the battlefield that we fought on. As you can see, you know, it's pretty damn awesome. Most certainly the best board I've ever fought on after having a good look at it. This board, you know, you're probably looking at between £5,000 to £10,000 of how much it would cost to do, just because of all the sheer little parts of it, if you were to buy it from Games Workshop. So yeah, to start off, it was awesome. As you can see, my army being deployed in this photo, there was actually just enough space to deploy the whole army, apart from my 3 snakes that were on the ground, on the table. I did have grave sites as well, because I was leading to Nagash. However, I didn't put any units in the grave because I just wanted most of the army to be on the table, just to basically show it off. Because this game, we did think about having a battle plan and having, you know, objectives for the game. However, we just decided to have a kill game, just because that would be most fun. And it means, you know, there's points in battle plans, in particular when you're in tournaments and competitive games, where it's like, oh, I've got this big scary zombie dragon I want to attack with, or I've got this unit of 10 skeletons. Now, the unit of 10 skeletons isn't going to do much damage, but it's holding an objective, and it's in combat with an enemy unit, and it just needs to kill one of the enemy models in that unit to reclaim the objective. So you're forced to attack with those 10 skeletons rather than your big scary, you know, vampire lord and zombie dragon. So because we didn't want to cause any of those issues for this game, we just said kill game, you know, so when it comes to combat, fight with whatever you want to fight with, you know, whatever the most fun. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and it turned out to be amazing. I mean, I just hope that you can tell just how awesome this board is. I mean, this board was, I believe, I think I worked it out to be 12 foot by 8 foot. You know, it was almost like twice the size of, oh, it was twice the size, I believe, of just a normal, 6 by 4 foot board. So the fact that this was twice the size of that was absolutely ludicrous. But it needed to be for our game. I mean, I had, like I said, 10,230, I think I said I had. And my opponent, he had a little bit less. He had, I think, it was between about 4 to 6,000, which is still a sizable army. Might have been a little bit less than mine, and that might have added up to things, but, it's only a slight difference. He had a triumph, so he was under my points, so I gave him a triumph because that's the sort of nice, generous person I am. But besides that, Archaon's claiming, ownership of this fortress, and we all know that Nagash owns all things, so how dare he, and he deserves to be destroyed. So that was basically the narrative of this game. Archaon was defending his fortress. Nagash didn't even like the idea that something could not be his. So battle commenced, and it was really sort of a payback from Nagash getting beaten on the head by the Slayer of Kings, which I don't want to say that killed Nagash back in the story, but in the narrative of Age of Sigmar, but I believe it made Nagash have to get knocked down for a little while. So my deployment for this game was, like I say, it wasn't the most tactical because we're just here for fun, but we just wanted to deploy things in what we thought would be like a cool position for them. So I had basically all my dragons and my Mort Archers on my left flank. So, we're talking a Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, a Abhorrent Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon, Prince Vahordre on his Zombie Dragon, Manfred, the Mort Archer of Night, Neferata, Mort Archer of Blood, and Arcan the Black, the Mort Archer of Sacrament. And that was on my left flank, so quite a strong flanking manoeuvre I think I could, get from those guys. And then onto my right flank, as you can see now, was my Dead Watch battalion. So that was my 2 units of 9 crit flares and my unit of 3 crit flares, and then the Infernal Courtier. And then just behind them as well was my Terrorgeist. And the reason why he was all the way in the back is because he's actually a kit bash of 2 Terrorgeists. So he is pretty big, and he's got a Sylvaneth Wildwood as his base. So there was limited places for where he could deploy on the board. And I also had quite a few not Cryptoras, I mean Flesh-Eater Court units in that sort of area. So might not sound, as nasty as the 6 monsters that are on the other side. However, you're looking at like a 2,000 point army just on the right flank. So it wasn't bad. And the other main thing to mention is that what we said for this battle plan, as you can see, there's a lovely moat of blood just before the fortress. And we said that only flying units can cross that moat, otherwise, it's boiling blood and, they just die. So, or melt is probably a better term for the dead. So, flying units can fly over, so that's why I had all my flying monsters on the left and all my Dead Watch battalion on the right. And then I had all my other units ready to storm the gate. Now, storming that gate, I had something like pretty much all my foot heroes. I had 9 Cryptoras, a unit of 20 Crypt Ghouls, a unit of 30 Crypt Ghouls, 40 Skeletons, 30 Skeletons, and 10 Skeletons as well. And then, like I said, a bunch of heroes, a Mongol, and I think that's pretty much it. I think I had on that gate, so just a few things. However, defending that gate was a unit of 30 Chaos Warriors, and those Chaos Warriors had a 2-up save, re-rolling ones, and then obviously they had Chaos rune shields, I think they're called, which gave them a 5-up save against mortal wounds. So, it was a pretty hard rock to crack, shall we say. I mean, he also had a few Bloodbound heroes and a few like Chaos Lord and stuff, like all with 2-inch range weapons, and they're all just behind the first rank of Chaos Warriors. So I'd be like mainly forced to attack his Chaos Warriors while he could, lean over his own models and stab me, basically. So it quickly became apparent that Crypt Horrors, with amazing how damage, the potential is, they can't break through something with a 2-up save rolling ones. I sort of knew this anyway. However, I just sort of pictured the moment from Lord of the Rings in my head where the gates of Minas Tirith are broken, and Gandalf says to those Minas Tirith soldiers, whatever comes through that gate, you'll stand your ground. So I just pictured, the Chaos Lord saying that to the Chaos Warriors, while these huge Crypt Horrors came through and started smashing these warriors to pieces. However, that isn't really what happened. I mean, I chucked, a ridiculous amount of attacks at these Chaos Warriors, and they were just bouncing off. So it became apparent that I had to actually use one of my zombie dragons, so this was the Prime Ghoul King on zombie dragon, to charge the gate as well, to try and kill those Chaos Warriors. Now, he only killed 5 Chaos Warriors before he died, which was a little bit sad, but he killed, 10 wounds of 2-up save rolling 1, so it's alright, I suppose. Now, the Chaos Warriors, with artifacts I took and with the Mongol nearby, they were suffering -2 to hit and -1 to wound. So, I think they had, so it's the Mongol that gave them -1 to hit, and then there was a spell put on them, I think Vaden Vigor, I think it might be called, which made them -1 to hit. It's called Vaden Vigor, or it's another one. There are 2 of them that are named very similar. And then the Khan Wraith I had attacking them as well had, I think it's called Balefire Lantern, which has like a green flickering light or something like that in the description, which made them -1 to wound. So these guys had a, -2 to hit and -1 to wound, and they're still doing alright because of all the buffs they had put on them. Now, the reason why my Prime Ghoul King on a zombie dragon died wasn't because of the Chaos Warriors, like I say. It was because he happened to be in range of a nasty little prayer called Blood Boil, which basically just makes my zombie dragon suffer 3 d6 mortal wounds in each one of my enemy hero phase. So didn't last too long. So dealing 10 wounds, it's not too bad, I suppose. And I'll tell you what, who was a little star here against the Chaos Warriors was my Khan Wraith. How it had 2-inch range weapons, so it was just on the edge of the gate, being able to attack the Chaos Warriors. And 60-point model, and it probably did about 10 damage worth of attack. So again, it killed pretty much, it killed the same, I believe, as the Abhorrent Ghoul King on zombie dragon, and a lot of that damage was partly because it managed to do 6 mortal wounds by getting 6 to hit with its scythe, because as Nighthaunt now do mortal wounds on 6s, all Nighthaunt, not just the Spirit Host. So that Khan Wraith, he did really good for how many points he was. He was definitely probably the star player of that little fight at the gate. So as I wasn't being able to punch through the gate quick enough, shall we say. I mean, so like I said, I had the Crypt Horrors there, which were really just blocking the way for other things to be able to attack. And then behind them we had the Crypt Ghouls, we had 80 Skeleton Warriors, loads of heroes, and things like I say, a Mongol. What else do we have? Things like, dire walls, like I say, for heroes, stuff like that, really. So I was slowly getting through them, but not through them quickly enough, as, when like I said, I killed 5 with the Khan Wraith and 5 with the, Abhorrent Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon, there's a slight points difference between those 2 models, but, they deal the same amount of damage, so that's all that counts. That took the whole game to do that. So, did nothing else. I did continuously try and put Curse of Years on them. However, I was always in range of a Blood Secretor, so I had to reroll my successful casting. Well, it wasn't really a problem because it was either Arcan or Nagash casting this spell, and it was getting +3 to cast, so I was getting it off pretty much every time. It was the what was it? I think there was one of his Slaughter Priests or something had a artifact that just went every time. Well, when I tried to cast it, he could one time just go on a 2-up or just stop that casting. I think he had to roll 2-up just to make me not be able to cast that spell that turn. And because this game we didn't actually manage to complete it, only went up to 4 turns. I only got 3 chances to do Curse of Years, and unfortunately I didn't get it off. However, if I did get it off, that unit of 30 Chaos Warriors, which was nails to try and get through, would have just gone turn 1, and then I would have flooded his fortress, and he would have had very little to do about it. But like I said, that was not the case, and as you can see in the photos I'm showing, just how much stuff I had to just go through that fortress gate. And as most of my stuff couldn't fly, I was forced to just try and smash through that gate. Now, looking back at it, yeah, I mean, I should have put like the Morgos Archive just on the gate just to cut through his Chaos Warriors, like butter going through, a knife going through butter. However, the game for me was more, like I say, narrative driven, and it was the same for my opponent as well. We both had a really good time, and I just wanted the Morgos Archive to be surrounding Nagash and just make him, as his bodyguard, and that was part of the battalion as well. So I just wanted to keep the sort of theme there. And then why I didn't put any Mort Archers and stuff to cut through the Chaos Warriors is because, number one, Blood Boil would have just killed those Mort Archers very easily. And also, I wanted to have most of my monsters all together just so when I had this block of like 6 monsters going into enemy units, I would just win all those combats just because of how fun that, shall we say, that war band of 6 heroic heroes was. 3 Mort Archers and 3 Zombie Dragon and Tergast kits. So that was really good fun. But yeah, so like I say, as you can see on the photo on the screen now, just how much stuff I had to pour through that gate. Unfortunately, I didn't get through the gate. But it does go to show just how good Chaos Warriors can be, because like I say, this was a narrative sort of more open play game. However, the rules of 1 were still in effect, so he couldn't stack spells or other abilities that are affected by the rules of 1. For example, he did actually have a couple of wizards in his army. One of them put Mystic Shield onto the Chaos Warriors, but apart from that, they weren't stacking Mystic Shield on them at all. It was all legal. So it just showed how good you can make Chaos Warriors with a 2-up save re-rolling 1s and a 5-up save against mortal wounds. And I said to my opponent, if he had a Chaos War Shrine there as well, that would give him a 6-up save against any wounds or mortal wounds done to him additionally. So you can make them a lot better than Liberators. If you really want to stack them, that is, if you really want to put all the buffs on them, obviously that costs additional points to do that, but if you do, you can make them super good, and especially they're pretty aggressive as well. I mean, because of the Blood Secretor nearby and Aspiring Deathbringer nearby with his command ability, I believe each one was getting 4 attacks at least, which is not bad. Yeah, they don't have any Ren, but when you're chucking like that many attacks out, against most of my saves were a 5-up save on that gate, so he was coming through the Cryptors, I was just bringing back the Cryptors, so it was sort of a stalemate there again, but it just shows how good they can be. And like I said, there was a lot of command abilities going off as I lent him my Archaon as his general. He had in total, I believe, 23 heroes, and a lot of them were Bloodbound heroes, and we do know that a lot of the Bloodbound heroes do have their own command abilities, so there was an enormous amount of command abilities going off. I think when they costed Archaon's points at 700, I don't think they imagined he would be able to trigger, like, I don't know, 15 other command abilities in a single game. So, maybe it should be a little bit more points for this game. However, I was, I think, at least double my opponent's size in points, so I can't really complain about that. So, yeah, that's basically sort of what happened on the gate and the setup. And as you can see when I'm explaining you to this, this isn't a proper battle report. It's just basically me showing you some pictures of our game and just trying to explain sort of what happened and, like the story behind it. And I appreciate some of the pictures, hopefully not too blurry. I don't know why, but my phone sometimes likes just having problems taking photos. I don't know why. It's an iPhone 6, should work properly. And but yeah, apart from that, I just want to show you off all these pictures just to show how awesome this board is and how well it themed our armies. Because I mean, like, our armies are based the same, like grey earth and snow bases with blood and the same grass and all those sorts of things. And on a battlefield like this, which is, like I say, Archaon's fortress and a Khorne setup, it really showed off his Blaze of Khorne really nicely. So now that you've seen all the deployment videos, what I'm going to show you now is just like different videos how the game developed. For example, this one is my first movement phase with my Dead Watch Battalion all flanking on the right to try and fly over that crack in the wall and really start causing a problem in his back lines. Which, with the Dead Watch Battalion, this is, like I say, a 2,000 point army doing a flanking manoeuvre is not too shabby in that respect. And then we move on to the other flank after its first movement phase, which is basically where I moved up Neferata, Arcan, Manfred, the apparent Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon, and Prince Vahordre. Start moving up there to try and get some charges in. And yeah, like I say, it's not a bad flanking manoeuvre for them as well. I did also have my Black Knights on this flank and my Graveguard on this flank, all in the idea that I'd be able to put, I believe it's called Dark Mist, the spell that Neferata has. When I believe it's called, it was called that, I just don't know with the rule change, the name got changed, but I don't think it would have. So I would have put Dark Mist on the Black Knights to try and move them up, and just to fly over the River of Blood, basically, just to fly over that moat. And just to say, just because 4+ monsters might not be enough on that flank, so get the Black Knights in there as well, and then get the Graveguard in there after them. I did struggle to get that spell off, especially how I was re-rolling with the Blood's Crater, because he had the Gorpil's Battalion, which basically makes that Portal of Skulls ability, where the Blood's Crater has 36 inches big, so I had to re-roll successful casting if I was within that range. And like I said, I had some pretty powerful casters there, but if you're forced to do too many re-rolls, and especially if he's got Wizards to unbind it, you're not always going to get that spell off. So that's why the Graveguard were forced to stay there. I did manage to get the Black Knights to fly over though, and all standing very nicely on the battlements of the fortress. And I managed to make some Blood Reavers a little bit scared by charging in a Terrorgeist with an Alpine Ghoul King on top of it and a Manfred into them. Just a unit of 10 Blood Reavers. However, you've got to make sure you get them dead, and Nagash can start using them for his own means. If you're going to do a job, do it right. And do it right, I certainly did, as there were no more Blood Reavers after that round of combat. And then moving on to Prince Vahordre, who was also there. He charged into 2 units of 5 Blood Warriors. He killed most of them. So that's 10 models in total. I think he killed about 8 of them or 7 of them. In the shooting phase as well, there was a Gaunt Summoner nearby, and he just breathed 6 mortal wounds on him and killed him. So it was quite nice to have our own Dirty Snowball from the Thunder Tusk. There, admittedly, the range is a lot smaller. However, it did the job, so that was pretty good. And then moving on to just a picture of the gate, which so in this moment I had the Crypt Horrors and the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon attacking the Chaos Warriors. So I told you about that before, I just thought I'd show you a picture of it, as it is pretty dynamic, and those Chaos Warriors did such a good job holding that line, because if they fell, he would have been fucked basically. So they did such a good job doing that, and it just you can just sort of picture the scene, just a huge shield wall, the best shield wall that Chaos has to offer, just planting to blocking this broken gate, while a zombie dragon's attacking it, and these huge monstrous troll-like undead monstrosities, which are the Cryptoris, not technically dead, but you know what I mean, and they hold their job against that. They stood their ground, mainly because there's a Blood Secretor nearby, so they need to do a battleship test, but I'm sure that's not the reason why none of them ran away, of course. So again, just showing off just the awesome scenes of this battle. Then in a later combat phase, we go back to Prince of Hordery, and he had a little bit of help from Manfred of One Cast Iron, the Mortarch of Night, and Neferata herself, which is of course the Mortarch of Blood, just because he was, he was struggling a little bit just to clear the Blood Reavers and a couple of Blood Warriors. So we just thought we'd chuck another 820 points worth of monsters in that general direction. So they cleared that. So like I say, this photo is from a later combat phase. So as the game went on and on, I tried to take as many photos as I could of trying to keep the game coherent in in a linear order of photos. However, my phone was running out of battery, so I just sort of took photos at sort of key moments and all that sort of thing as my phone. Like I said, it's an iPhone 6, but I think Apple have now decided that it's far too old and I should buy the new one, unfortunately. So like I say, but this is the reason I took photos like this is because in normal games, certainly for me, it might be different where you guys play and stuff, but for me, I would never have 3 huge point monsters like this in a game. I mean, in a 2,000 point game, what's that? I mean, Prince of Hordery is 480 and Manfred's 420. So what does that get us? That gets us 900 points already, and then Neferata herself is 400. So 1,300 points on monsters just in that one shot there. So absolutely awesome just to have that as a small flanking maneuver, because while they were doing that, you had Arcan and the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist doing things as well, just as a smaller flanking maneuver. It just shows just the scale of this battle. I don't want to keep on saying that the battle I had was awesome, my army's awesome, because it's not. It's just, for me personally, I've been working this army for nearly 2.5 years now, and it was just so nice just to have it on the table. And my friend as well, who's been doing this for over a year now, it's just so nice to have his chaos on the table. Now, some of his chaos, isn't painted, which probably you can see in case you're going to put it in the comments down below. However, I can tell you a lot more of it wasn't painted before that game, and he smashed out a whole week of painting to get that done. And he's also the person who was in a video of my last hobby in chat, which was just talking about a game I had against Fire Slayers and a painting competition. And in that painting competition, he did have his Blades of Corn in it, which he painted up when he was feeling really ill, and he was feeling pretty ill as well coming up to this battle. So fair play to him to get as much as he could painted. I mean, I don't think many of those Blood Reavers, if any of those, were painted before this game. So just want to, credit where credit's due on his side of the painting. Then we have a shot of what the Crypt Flayers got up to, and that was just basically clearing Blood Warriors as well, as they did that very nicely. As Blood Warriors will be able to pile in and attack you when they die, but I had 21 Crypt Flayers, so if he kills a few, I'm not too bothered. And then so this sort of just shows the center of the fortress as well. Like I said, his army was sort of half the size of mine was, even less so when it came to number of models. But so this showed how crucial it was for him to hold that gate. Now, this is pretty much as far as we got to in the game, as like I said, this in its own took we're there for 10 o'clock till 8 o'clock in that day. However, we had lunch and all that sort of thing at Bugsman's Bar, which was just awesome. It's just like going to a Viking hall and getting your food there really. But the food's nice. It's it's a bit probably more relatable to the Green Dragon from the Shire. So it's fantastic. My mate went for the Ogre Burger. It's like a £20 huge burger, which is unbelievably big. However, as always, he pumped himself up so that he could eat it all. So you get a certificate basically if you manage to eat it because it's that big. I think it's two 12-ounce burgers with beef burgers with pulled pork on top, with melted cheese in a bun. I don't even know how they make it that big, and then 3 portions worth of chips and 12 onion rings. And so like I said, he bigged himself up to do it, but like most things, he failed, as that's pretty much what he does, just disappoints people and lets himself down really. So he really should work harder on being able to shove shitloads of food into his mouth. So with that aside, moving away from Bugsman's and the failure of a friend, we then go on to back to the game. So like I say, we're there for 10 hours, but eat, and then we did a couple of other things, and set up as well. So gameplay wise, we probably had about 6 hours. So in 6 hours we got to term 4, which to be fair, I was pretty happy with. When I say term 4, I don't mean we did term 4. I mean we got to the end of term 3. I mean there's probably we didn't do like Battleship. We had to cut off before that. So, but we pretty much did 3 battle rounds. So I was pretty pleased with that. And in that time, like I said, my mate did a great job of holding off the fort, making sure nothing went through that gate. He did a bloody good job of that. And but at this moment, it was clear that just how much flanking moves. Had a 2,000 point flare army on one side and had pretty much the majority of monsters in my entire over 10,000 point death collection on the other. So after that, it would have been clear that I would have won it. However, like I said, this game was not about winning. If you wanted to go, oh, who's going to win this game? I believe I have more than double his points value. So it's not a fair game at all. It's completely one-sided to me. And it's really unfair for my friend. If you were trying to play to win, I was basically being a bastard. So, but that wasn't the point. The point was just to put all our models from our army onto the table and just have them fight each other in a big battle. As you can see in the sort of the left centre of this photo, we actually have my Archaon fighting my Terrorgeist. Now, this was the first time my Archaon managed to fight because, like I say, he is mine, and I got him for my 21st birthday, and I spent so long building and painting him. I mean, it came up to a total of 86 hours, which is the most I've ever spent on a single model, and I'd never spend that much time again. However, I wanted him to look really good. But the problem is I don't have a Chaos Army, so it was a one-off model, so I never got to use him in a game. But as you can see by now, my friend has a sizable Chaos Army, so I really wanted to lend him Nagash to him, sorry, not Nagash even, what am I talking about, Archaon to him, so he could make his army a lot stronger and see what my Archaon could do in the game. Unfortunately though, Archaon did not live up to his title. I think was the ever chosen, the Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, the three-eyed king, basically a demigod. Unfortunately, he didn't live up to it because he did eventually kill the Terrorgeist, but before he did that, the Terrorgeist, in one round of combat, put him on 9 wounds. So, that was unfortunate, most certainly. Especially how the dice what Archaon rolls to... so, if you go to target Archaon with attacks, he rolls a dice. Now, the result of that dice... is what you have to re-roll for when you make attacks against him. So the first time I went to attack against him, he rolled his dice, and his dice was a 6. So that meant that every hit I did against him of a 6, I had to re-roll it. So even with that in mind, Terrorgeist still did, I think it's 11 damage to him, put him on 9 wounds, which just sort of showed he was really unlucky. especially how a little thing I did is like he's on like a realm gate and it's got like a pool of blood underneath the realm gate, and obviously I did the pool of blood with blood for the blood god, but what I actually mixed it in was something I took as a souvenir when I went to Rome, and that was I took sounds a bit weird, but I took basically a small little part of the Colosseum with me, and just like some brick or something like that, like a tiny little stone or something. Anyway, and then I filed it down and mixed it with the blood for the blood god. And as you know, this was like the arena of the best gladiators in the world at one point fought here, and I mixed the stone of that with the blood for the blood god on his base to try and, I don't know, empower him somehow. Unfortunately, that doesn't work, and it probably goes along the idea that it was wrong of me to try and take apart the Colosseum with me and I should be punished. And unfortunately my friend was punished in this case because he's generally a really lucky guy in all games. Even he would say like his luck is above average. So it's a real shame there that my tour guys managed to nearly kill Archaon. But he managed to get in the fight in the end. Like, of course it would have been awesome we got to a showdown between Nagash and Archaon, but just didn't happen. Just didn't have time, I'm afraid. I mean, something we could look at doing in the future. I mean, I don't know if we'll be able to do this, but rent this table out again. But because we rented it for the Saturday, rent it for Saturday and Sunday, and then just keep our models there overnight and just complete a whole game. Could be something we could look to do in the future, but it's just like I said, the logistics of getting everything up there can be a real struggle. And yeah, so like I say, that's pretty much it. So it was a showdown between Nagash and Archaon. Like I said, if it was like a match play game, I would have won, but I'm just seeing it as, we both drawed because we both had, huge amounts of fun in that game. I think it's safe to say it's the best game that we've ever had. We've talked about doing this game forever, but it was just a case of you can't have a game of this magnitude in the store, just the local Games Workshop store, obviously, and we don't have a gaming room in our place because we live in the UK and we live in the southeast of the United Kingdom in a county called Kent. And the problem with Kent is that it's really nice. I really like Kent. It reminds me a little bit of the Shire in summertime. However, property prices here are quite expensive. So what that means is that if you want to have a gaming room in your house, you can't really have a family as you need to spend all your income on buying a house big enough and not having a child to live in your spare room. However, there are things even more important than Warhammer, and rightly so. And something else I should mention, going back to the game, is that I've heard a lot of people talk about Skull Reapers not being very good, not worth the points, you better go in Wrathmongers. However, in this game, towards the late game, he had a unit of 5 Skull Reapers charge my Morgoth Archai all on 4 wounds, and he did 22 damage to them in one round of attack. So not piling in and attacking twice or anything like that, they were just heavily buffed and they did that much damage to my Morgoth Archai, which from a unit of 5 Skull Reapers is insane. I mean, that is really good. I mean, what are Skull Reapers? They're 160 points? That's what I believe they are. If they're around that anyway, and that is really, really good. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's, lucky on his dice rolling, and unlucky for me because I think I failed a lot of mortal wound saves from their armour and from Death's Minions. However, that just goes to show just how good these guys are. And in return, I had one more Morgoth Archai left, and when he went to attack his Skull Reapers, he killed 4 of them. So I sort of got my own back with that. He did make it so it was 5 against 1, and then I just cleared them off and made it 1 against 1. And then I believe that was the last combat of the game, I think. We might have had a combat after that where it was the Archaon against the Terrorgeist just to see if he could kill it. He did kill it, and he did take 2 mortal wounds from when it exploded, I think. So, like I say, that was the game. We were playing for fun, but narratively, Nagash has claimed the fortress for himself and has got his revenge on Archaon and the forces of chaos. Right, so those were the photos of the huge game we had where I believe it was something like 15,000 points on that table, at least, probably. So, yeah, that just goes to show the magnitude, and I was really happy I could show it to you guys. And just really so you know why I haven't been able to make a video over the last week, it's just because I've been too busy having to paint my own things and get it ready for that battle. Now, it would have been nice to try and do a battle report. However, as like I said, we spent, including deployment, about 7-8 hours on that game, and if we'd do a battle plan, it would have not a battle plan, a battle report even, it would have made it probably gone on for an extra hour or two, so we just didn't have the time, I'm afraid. We didn't even finish the game, so that's unfortunately why we couldn't do a battle report of that. However, I am going to try and do some battle reports in the future, as I know they are very popular and there's not loads out there for Death, especially the Legions of Nagash. It just happens to come down to things like timing and like I say, because when I do this in the store, you don't really have that much. You don't have that much time to be able to have a table for in the store, even if you book in advance. And it's also just making sure you have the right caliber of opponent, stuff like that as well. Because I am a very competitive gamer, and if I go against someone who is very nice and stuff, but let's say they're not, they don't play the most competitively, it's not going to be a fair battle report. So there's other things you've got to think about. But like I say, I'd like to do a battle report in the future. So that was our big game that we had. Now to move on to a few photos of the Warhammer exhibition hall at Warhammer World. Now, not going to be loads of photos here, as I have been to Warhammer World a few times now, and I only took photos of things I haven't really seen before. So, and it's mainly Age of Sigmar stuff. So that's why you won't see all the exhibits and stuff, and also means if I show you all the photos of all the exhibits they've got on it right now and all the dioramas and stuff, it means if you go yourself, if you haven't been there, it's not as surprising, it's not as wow, because when you go to exhibit hall, I believe it's called, the best part is just walking through those doors and going, wow, I can't, this is awesome. It makes you want to do loads of armies you never even thought about before, just because they're displayed in such a good way, and the paint job on these models are awesome, especially how many there are and how vast these dioramas are. So like I say, I'll show you some of them, but I'll leave some of them for yourself to see when you go in there. So starting off with their newest one, and potentially my favourite one. I don't know if it is my favourite one, but it's probably just because it's new and I haven't seen it before, but it really did get the wow factor from me. So this is their latest diorama, which is essentially the orcs and goblins of old from the back in the old world, and the world that was, as it's known in Age of Sigmar, was assaulting a empire city. So there's actually a lot of story behind this battle, and I'm afraid I can't remember it. So if you know what the story behind this battle is, please put it in the comments down below, as it'd be great to get the information out there. So essentially, this is actually one of their old dioramas that they have brought back out, and this is a smaller version of it, because the original was on a board that was, I think they said it was 12 foot by 6 foot or 12 foot by 4 foot, something like that. It was a huge city landscape, but they decided when they brought it back out, as there's a lot more dioramas in the room, they didn't have the space, so they were just going to focus on the sort of city centre of that battle. I believe that's what it was, and so that's why. And as you can see, it's still pretty big. I mean, I believe at least it's it's a 6 foot by 4 foot board. I mean, might even be bigger than that. I'm not too sure. However, what you have is the obviously the men of the Empire with all their magic and war machines defending this fortress, and they've got huge gun batteries that are just like hand built into the wall, and you would feel like they can beat the orcs and goblins hands down with all their black powder weaponry. However, the goblins and the orcs, they have their own weapons of mass destruction. They have these great siege weapons, as you can see in some of the photos, and they also have their things like their huge giants covered in cladded metal, just to make them a bit more durable before they get to the fighting, so they can't get shot in the head by cannons so easily. And then they have, I think there's at least 2 wyverns in this battle scene. There's at least 2 that I could see. You've got one on the centre tower, which I believe that you can see just at the back, and then you've got one at the open top tower just at the top right of this video. So yeah, I mean, that wyverns are awesome models as well. I mean, like, and as you can see in the fortress for the Empire, we have steam cannons, or steam tanks even. We have Hailstorm rocket batteries, I believe they're called. Hellblaster volley guns. We have cannons. We have mortars. We have pretty much everything, even some handmade stuff. And we have, you know, an incredible amount of Empire soldiers and Empire knights. I think we've got Demigryph knights in there as well. We've got a huge variety there. And it's a really nice show of the fortress scenery that Games Workshop did. And just if you bought loads of it, I mean, you know, it's a bit too late now, unfortunately, but if you bought loads of it and what you can actually make out of it. So, yeah, it's really awesome. And then for the orcs, like I said, they've got all the wyverns, got all their big stuff, but they also have, you know, like loads of orc boar boys. They've got loads of just orc boys, and they've got, you know, goblins as well. It's just a huge showcase of what Warhammer Fantasy was, and to be honest, it does make me a bit sad because, like I'm sure you know, I do love Age of Sigmar so much, but I do sort of wish it was called Age of Nagash. But that aside, I do have a lot of love for the old world still, just because of all the story that was built up for it. Now, I'm not saying Age of Sigmar doesn't have a lot of story, because it's got a fair amount already, and it's only been going for, like, what, 3 years now? Whereas the old world, I think that's got, like, what, 30, 40 years worth of lore for it. So it's unfair to compare them. But this photo just really sums up what the old world, you know, what it was, and the sort of battles that took place there. But also loads of inspiration for your own ideas, you know, for your own empire of man, or, you know, your orcs and goblins. It just has a really sort of fantasy feel to it. And I'm not going to lie, it did also make me want to do an orc and goblin army, because just things like those wyverns and the sort of kit bashing potential is really nice. We then move on to the Legends of the Gash display. Now, this isn't a diorama, this is just displayed models in a cabinet. Now, I don't know if this is heavy metal painted, it might not be, but regardless, it's really nicely painted models. You have every model, I want to say, from the Death Ground Alliance in this cabinet. You even have a Mongol, I believe, in there somewhere. But it just goes to show how nice, you know, the Death Ground Alliance is, and how it really is, you know, the best Grand Alliance out there, obviously. And like I say, some really, really nicely painted models here. I didn't take up close pictures of all of them at all, because it would have just taken too long. But as you can see, as a collection, it's really nice. Now, talking about Death, we move on to a diorama where they are actually featured. And this, as you can tell, is a fight between the Flesh Eater Court and the Cowden Overlords. And I'm sure you can also tell that this is just an absolutely awesome display of hobby. So we have, obviously, this fight, as you can see, is above the clouds. So the Flesh Eater Courts, I'm not too sure how they got up there. The flares obviously flew up there, and then it might be amongst, like, the caves and stuff like that, where the Flesh Eater Courts live in the kingdom, or, you know, well, the realm of Shaiish. So I say it's absolutely awesome, just the amount of you know, ships you got from the Cowden Overlords, and then, like, little things like you can see in the top left corner, like a Terrorgeist, you know, about to jump on a ship there. You can see like, even just things like ships emerging from the skies as well. And obviously, sure, you can tell by now that how long this would have taken to do. And I mean, like, things like the snow is just not the snow, sorry, the clouds. It's just really simply done. It's just like cotton wool and mixed with made, you know, sprayed some of it so it's a bit darker to look like storm clouds. Just a real simple thing, but it turns out really, really, really well. And there's things like just the amount of skill that's gone into this, and the amount of attention to the detail, because the ships that are like half submerged into this cotton wool, you can guarantee that the under half of the ship will be fully painted to a really good standard, even though it's never going to be seen in this diorama. Just in case you can see a tiny bit of it, it has to be painted to the top-notch standard. And as you can see, we've got like crypt ghouls here, like climbing around the towers, attacking the Cowdens on foot. and the Khaldun overlords are getting a little bit overwhelmed here, and are sort of really struggling to hold their own on the ground. They're trying to put beaks on the ground and stuff, but they probably are best just staying to their ships and only have to worry about the Terrorgeists and zombie dragons charging them down. What's also done really nicely in this diorama is things like the ships. With obviously they've got different types of weapons, so you've got things like drill guns and stuff. When they're shot out of the gun, they've made it so in the air you can see like little twists from where like the bullet would have gone flying in the air to hit its target. Things like that. When the harpoons are being shot, you can see like or the sky pikes, I think they're called. You can see like the rope hanging from the sky pike, connecting it to the ship, stuff like that. You've got smoke coming from the barrels. It's just done really nicely. Like here you can see a crypt flare that's unfortunately just been shot on the chest by, I want to say that's a drill cannon, but it might just be a normal sky cannon. That, but it just goes to show how much, like I keep on saying, attention to detail has been done on this diorama. And obviously, I'm not an expert. I am just generally repeating my own words here, talking about how good this diorama is, but that's pretty much all there is really to it. I mean, it's just, it just keeps on going on and on. I mean, like at the picture you're seeing at the moment, it just keeps on going up that cliff face, and it's not like it's just a boring, grey bit of rock. You've got so much going on, you've got so many ships, and it really just goes to show how money is no object for the exhibition team who do these dioramas. And then we have like is it a gun hauler, the small one, the small Khaldun overlord ship, was just being dragged down by the weight of ghouls just jumping on it. It was just hanging by the cliff a little bit too long, and just being dragged down by the weight of numbers, and you would not want to be on that ship. So this is one of my favourite dioramas there are there. I do sort of like this one more than the Orcs and Goblins one, but at the same time I do really like the Orcs and Goblins one, because I did Orcs and Goblins as a kid, and it really does sort of bring back those memories I saw in the White Dwarf magazines from back then. So for nostalgia reasons, the Orcs and Goblins one is my favourite, but this Khaldun Overlord one and the Flesh-Eater Court, for a new one, it just really shows off what Age of Sigmar's like. And how I was talking about the the Orcs and Goblins diorama we just shown attacking the Empire castle, that's really good, and it sort of showed what fantasy was like, how it felt like a medieval castle being assaulted by these Orcs and Goblins. However, this Khaldun Overlord and Flesh-Eater Court one sort of showcases a bit what Age of Sigmar is a little bit like. It's not the best diorama to do it. There is another one there, but I'll let you see that when you go there. But with this one, just having these huge battles beyond the clouds, and just really high up with these like cannibal creatures versus these steampunk, flying dwarves. It sort of shows the difference between fantasy and Age of Sigmar. Staying on the subject of flesh eaters, we now move on to some of the armies on parade boards. Now, I haven't taken pictures of all of them because my phone was now really starting to run out of battery, so could only take pictures of a few of them. And this isn't that fair, as the first army on parade boards that I saw here weren't, I'm not saying they were the best ones, but they were the first ones I saw, so I took pictures. And then when I saw some other ones that looked awesome as well, just didn't have the battery on the phone to be able to do it. So anyway, here we have the Flesh-Eater Court one. Now, as you can see, it's done nice as well. How it is, it's a relatively flat board, especially compared to the dioramas we have seen. But these are army on parade boards, so things are limited. However, you've got some lovely scenery here from, I think that's like a fish tank skull you've got at the back of there from what's meant to be some sort of giant beast from the realm of Shaish. And then you also have lots of lovely stonework and graves. And then to top it off, there is a little bit of humour where there is a little peasant here you can see titled underneath him the wrong realm gate, which is just a nice little comic reminder of like the Flesh-Eater Courts. They are insanely like Sidious, sort of beasts, like really like creepy and cruel and scary to some extent. And there's a little peasant here being chased by a crypt ghoul because he accidentally went through the wrong door. So yeah, it's a nice display. Now moving on to something that isn't dead. Well, when I say it's not dead, I mean technically they are, but they're sort of memories from slans that are big fat toads on chairs which come down from the sky. Anyway, I'm just, going off topic. So the best way to describe them are the Seraphon. So, which, we all know, joking aside, they're the lizardmen from old, and they, now they are, like I'm saying, space lizards, which are not really there. There's made out of light and memories, which I'm not the biggest fan of, which is why I really like this board, because it reminds me of what the lizardmen were like back in Lustria, with all the jungle theme there, and as you can see, you've got a nice variety of models here. Also have a nice waterfall, part of the diorama as well, and compared to some of the dioramas that I've shown you, well, when I say diorama, I mean it's the Arm and Parade board. It's only a 2 foot by 2 foot board, so it's done well to fit all this in, and it doesn't look overcrowded with models either, which is nice, and it's just a nice, bright, vibrant board as well. It definitely stands out in the room. Now, moving on to something I'm not so keen on, which I'm sure you guys know by now, is the Stormcast, but I thought I should show you this picture because even though I'm not really a fan of Stormcast, especially the Hammers of Sigma, so you just see their colour scheme all the time, and Stormcasts are everywhere and they always win stuff. But apart from that, and apart from me whinging about them, you can just tell how cool the hobby is here, and how how much of a good job this guy's done. I mean, like I said, they are Hammers of Sigma, so you see the colour scheme everywhere. However, they are painted superbly. I mean, that Star Drake, the scales on that Star Drake are really nicely done. It's a nice bright army. The conversion on the steam tank is done nicely, and it's quite a simple conversion. I mean, all he's done is obviously it's a much different paint scheme to what he's usually in, but he's replaced the Empire shield on the side and the cap for the roof of the turret of the tank with Stormcast shields with the Hammers of Sigma. However, like I say, simply done, but executed very well and very nice. And then his diorama is when I looked at it and I thought, oh, okay, I see how that's done. And when I mean I can see how that's done, I don't mean that in a bad way, because what he's done is got I think it's called what? Shattered Dominion board, I believe it is. So he's got a Shattered Dominion board section, and then he's got another one which he's taken apart, and it's the one with all the cogs and stuff on it. And then he's cut all the cogs apart, and then as you can see, modelled them on top of each other to make a second platform. And like I say, I can see how it's done it. I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean that is it's pretty hard to try and cut all that up. And he's just got another Shattered Dominion board, and it's only using part of it. So it's quite expensive, and it does fit him nicely with the Stormcast. How that sort of arcane look to it, and like I say, like Stormcast. So I personally see them everywhere. However, you can tell how good the job this guy's done, and how well it's been executed. So I thought it was only right I showed it off. Now, moving on to a couple of smaller things here which belong to Chaos. The first one is a old model. It's a Chaos Lord on a Chaos Dragon. Now, the reason why I quite like this is, like I say, it's an old model, but I think he must have reshaped it or resculpted it just a tiny bit, and it's turned out really well, and it's breathed a lot more new life into the model, and just how much more dynamic the pose is. So I was a big fan of that, and I thought that deserved a photo for sure, just to show off something a bit more different, and like I say, a model I haven't seen for a long time, and just this guy's spin on it. The next little Chaos diorama we have is a bunch of Chaos Warriors on a really sort of nicely themed base. Now, the reason I like this is because usually Chaos Warriors, not all of them, they're undivided. It's usually black colours, but this particular little warband, the colours look a lot more dingy and a lot more sort of dark, and it just made it feel a lot more sort of gritty, because Age of Sigma can be, the aesthetic of Age of Sigma can be quite bright and vibrant, and really in your face. But with these guys, it was more subtle, and just when you had a closer look, it did just look really glossy. I think they were decapitated heads, and it just really sort of made that aspect of Age of Sigmar shine. It reminded me of a Facebook page, what I believe is called Dark Age of Sigmar, like AOS 28 I believe it's called, which really shows off the sort of more dark and sinister parts of the realms. Now, so those are the photos I've got of these, you know, the dioramas and the army and prey boards, and just a couple of extra models at the end. And by far the biggest regret I have of what I didn't take pictures of were the names of the people who have done these dioramas and the army and prey boards, because I feel like you know, really not, I've really, you know, mucked up here by not taking a picture of their name, but just try and remember their name, because, you know, I'm showing off their work and I'm not like giving them any credit apart from saying it looks good. So I hope you can forgive me for that. I mean, next time I go, I'm going next month, so in March. I believe I'm going on the 24th, going up for a tournament. So I'll definitely go in there again, and I'll do my best to get their names, as I think, you know, it's only right to show. So if I'm showing off their work, they deserve all the credit. So anyway, that is the you know, the Warhammer weekend I had. I also had a really, like, you know, it's just great experience. Also, there was a Hobbit tournament up there, you know, like the Lord of the Rings, if you remember it, Warhammer Games Workshop, you know, that is a thing, Lord of the Rings models, and I liked the, you know, the aesthetic of the game so much, because after seeing all these armies, you don't usually see many Lord of the Rings armies much in your local stores, so seeing it there, just remembered my, you know, love for the films and the books, and actually bought a box of models and a book and stuff to have a little read up on the Lord of the Rings. Now, rest assured, this channel is Age of Nagash, and it's all Age of Sigmar related. But I just thought, you know, like, as this is like a, you know, hobby and chat, and, you know, I'm as transparent as I can be with you guys of like my own hobby and stuff, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'll be dipping my toes into Lord of the Rings. If you would absolutely hate me to talk about the Lord of the Rings game or anything like that, or Warhammer 2 Lord of the Rings on this channel, please let me know in the comments. As I imagine you guys don't want me to talk about Lord of the Rings as Warhammer, because this is an Age of Sigmar channel. That's completely understand. However, if you would like to, you know, hear what, you know, I'm interested in doing in the Lord of the Rings, or maybe sort of interested in it yourself, as, you know, it's a game you don't really see that much, but the models are really, really cool. Put it down equally in the comments as well. And like I say, I understand if you don't want me to talk about The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings Warhammer at all, but I just thought I'd let you guys know that's what I went home with as my treat from Warhammer World. And I would have taken some of the, you know, photos of the Lord of the Rings armies there, but however, my phone at that point was completely dead, so I couldn't take any photos, sadly. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So that's why I haven't done any videos for a while. Like I say, I was painting up so much models for this huge game I had, which I talked about in the first half of the video, and it really was worth it. I mean, like, those nights for that week, for like 7 days, you know, going to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning most nights, you know, up at like 5 for work, and just like had barely any sleep. You know, sometimes, you know, I was up for like 6 o'clock at work, so it wasn't too bad, but I just really didn't want to do this. I mean, like, when I came home from work, I was, you know, just wanted to, you know, not gonna lie, just, you know, when you get back from work, gym and stuff, you just want to sit in front of the telly, to be honest. But I've, you know, I was strong, I soldiered on. I did manage to get Nagash completely finished, as if I'm honest with you, he's not completely done. However, I was happy enough for the stage he was at for using him in that game. As there is one thing, if a model is not fully painted, I do find it very hard to use in the game. However, this was an exception. So yeah, that's what I was being busy. There's been a couple of family things as well, so that's why I wasn't able to do any videos, which, you know, again, I can only apologise for that, because I do try and get a video once, like at least every 2 days, and I'm going to try and get back to that schedule now. So I just wanted to do, like I say, a hobby and chat video, just to sort of tell you guys why you haven't seen any videos from me, rather than me just jumping in straight away and pretending like schedule was normal, because it wasn't normal. I should have put up a couple of videos, however, I didn't have the time, unfortunately. And yeah, and I just wanted to showcase my weekend at Warhammer World, just to show you guys, if you've never been there, I know a lot of you guys who watch and listen to my stuff, you don't all come from the UK, so it's probably, much harder for you to go to Warhammer World, and you probably think that people in the UK will take it for granted how close we are. And I mean, we do. I mean, I'm like a 4-hour drive away from Warhammer World, but even that is incredibly small distance compared to some of you. I mean, when I had this game, the huge one at Warhammer World, I had a few people came up to me who, I was going to call them Yanks, but to be fair, people from the United States of America, really nice and really friendly and stuff, and they were, so it's their first time over here, and they just, it's their first thing they see, because when you go into Warhammer World, you walk through the shop, and then you're into the big gamer room, and our game's the first one they, locked eyes on. They just want to ask, what the armies were and stuff, and it's really nice having people like that come up and say, they like the painting, what my friend did, and just thought the battle looked awesome. And it's really nice to have see some people from across the world who are there. They're there's people there from Norway, I think, as well, and it's just a really nice showcase of how wide this hobby is, and just how far it's spread since it started. So it's always a nice reminder going up there and seeing all this. So I'll stop talking now, as I've been going on for ages. I'll just ask you guys if you have any ideas on what sort of videos you'd like me to do next. Please put it down in the comments below. If not, I'll definitely come up with something to do. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and comment down below, as that always does help me make as many videos as I can. And I have noticed since the last time I did a video, I have got a lot more guys of you, out there who have subscribed to my channel, and I'm really, really grateful for that. It's really nice to see that over the course of, I believe I've been doing this for about 6 weeks now, and last time I checked, 194 subscribers, and I'm just blown away by that. That's many more than I thought I would have, within 2 months of doing this. So absolutely fantastic. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support you give, and all I can ask is keep doing it, keep liking those videos, and subscribing, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. So with all that aside, I thank you very much for watching this video, and remember, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.